The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the famous Tom Fennell,
in the flesh,
philanthropist, world traveler, and expert at energy transmission or something.
or something.
Yeah, and I'm bumping the pictures there by accident. I get up and do a search in the internet for anything that relates to energy and climate change. I usually look through about 300 or 400 titles every day.
Well, you definitely go through a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
No question
And then
about it.
I find...
You put a bunch of them up on your blog.
Yeah, I do. I find 10 or 15 and put those up on my blog. And the blog is called geoharvey.com, and it's the source of all the stuff that we're going to be talking about. Today's show is being...
So this is the best of the blog.
The best of the blog. Today's show is being recorded on March 15th in the morning here at BCTV Studio. And we're starting with a week earlier. We do the shows once a week and start with a previous Thursday. So we're going to start with March 8th. If you go to geoharvey.com, you can find the stories, hopefully. Hopefully.
Usually 95 times out of 100.
Yeah, I every once in a while, I try to check to make sure that when I put something up there, a casual person coming in will get past, whatever paywall or whatever it is that some of the organizations that have news put up paywalls, but they sense the fact that it's a Google search that has, or whatever it is, that has brought, and they'll honor.
They have their vase.
Yes, they do. And so I occasionally put something, and I've even found that they will sense the fact that I've made the search, and then when I use that address in a window on the computer, which is a what do they call it? It's a they have a special term for a window that looks like a different place.
Okay.
I
can't think of the term, but
yeah, well, it's a cloak and dagger. And I look, usually, if they're going to accept it from Google or wherever, but they're not going to accept it from anybody else except for subscribers, I get blocked at that second window. But sometimes I don't get blocked at the second window, and when I post it, anybody who comes will look at it and they'll be blocked, except for you, of course, because you always find ways around it.
Well, what I generally do is I'll take a key sentence and I'll Google that key sentence,
yep.
and it'll pop up.
Yep.
Whether or not I can access it is variable. But generally, I find one.
Yeah, sometimes stories are plagiarized, and so they appear another time. And they're
under another name.
Under another name.
Yeah.
And there's an organization called Brinkwire that does that. They turn it into a news release as exactly the same words.
It's all plagiarized?
It's all plagiarized, and they just do this constantly. Anyway, we should start off, shouldn't we?
Yeah, well, I'll just finish up on what you were saying.
Yeah.
I read, of course, what you're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And some of them I find very interesting.
Yeah.
And if I do so, I'll try to remember to remark about it so that you guys watching the show can look it up.
Yeah.
Or whether it's worth looking up.
A lot of these things are worth looking up. Some of them are very short. Anything I get that comes from Renews is usually just a statement of the fact that something happened. And usually there's not much more to it than that. It's like GE put up GE sold 107 turbines to an offshore wind farm. And so the question is, so what? Well, you sell 107 of those turbines and you're selling hundreds of millions of dollars worth of stuff.
It could be significant. Doesn't sound like much.
But you don't have to spend a lot of time talking about it. Okay, we should get going. Our first item here is from CNN, and we have a picture.
We have a picture. Let's see if I can get that one.
There you go.
Today's storm surge is tomorrow's high tide.
Wow, a major report released this week by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is called NOAA, of course, highlights a growing threat facing coastal communities in all parts of the United States. As sea levels rise due to global warming, a kind of flooding occurring experienced only in storms will happen during normal high tides. We're already seeing.
This is happening. We've talked about it on the show.
We've talked about it,
I think that's in Massachusetts.
It looks like it, doesn't it?
I think it is.
Yeah.
And I was interested in this article. It's long.
Yep.
It's technical.
Yep.
And if you want to find out something, read it. This is a good article.
Yeah. I used to live on a peninsula at the mouth of the Jones River, which is in Kingston, Plymouth, Massachusetts. And
Jones River.
Jones River.
I don't think I ever heard of it.
Well, the Jones River is Jones River is so funny. It's a little teeny river. It's about this wide, which comes along through the countryside for about 3 or 4 miles, and then it goes into a tidal estuary. And within 150 yards, it goes from, 8 feet wide or 10 feet wide or whatever it is, to being big enough that there's a marina. So, but in a storm surge, that whole area, the neighborhood that I lived in, is completely cut off. And if you're going to get in and out, you have to drive through salt water, which is usually not a good idea.
Sometimes it can hide something.
Not only can it hide something, but a year hence, yeah, that's true. But even if you're driving through that much salt water, a year from now you might discover that the entire bottom of your car is rotted away. Okay.
Have you read this one?
I think I did.
I got a couple of notes about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sunny day flooding is what they call it.
Yep.
It's flooding which is increasingly happening with no storm or rain in sight.
Yep.
A high tide on steroids. And we talked about Miami.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It can reach into our communities and leave us stranded in our cars, stuck at home, sloshing through water, unable to get to school or work.
Sounds like fun, doesn't it?
Not a catastrophic flood, but it can disrupt our ability to go about our normal lives.
Gives the kids an excuse to take the day off from school.
And it's happening more frequently.
It's happening more frequently. It's happening all along the Gulf of Mexico and the eastern seaboard of the United States.
Yeah, let's move along.
And other places.
Here.
An item from Scientific America.
China's power move.
Yeah.
Sneaky.
This is sneaky. Over the past decade, Beijing has undeniably dealt a blow to the United States, which, by the way, has been dealt with invitation from the current administration.
It's like this. See my chin?
Okay, dealt a blow to the United States in clean technology, a clean energy technology market. China is now the world's dominant producer of solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, as it continues to capture strategic advanced technology markets. Beijing has its eye on power lines next.
And that's mostly what this article is about, and this is something we don't talk too much about. But as of now, the Chinese are building more than 500 miles of new high-voltage direct current.
Yeah.
Okay, direct current power lines across Pakistan. So they're contractors and other countries.
Yeah, and they're using technology that was developed in Massachusetts, I think.
Well, about 10 years ago, this was borderline technology. The best way to transmit power was AC.
Yeah.
But it had a length limitation.
Right.
With DC, that length limitation is cut in half.
And then on top of everything else, what you do is you do cryogenic stuff.
And you can go from here to Tierra del Fuego.
Yeah. Absolutely. You could power any place on Earth from any place on Earth if you just had the power line. And with very low line loss. We're talking about line losses that are on the order of 2.5% per 1,000 miles.
Well, that's why they're cold. They're cooling it so cold. Cryogenics.
Yeah.
There's virtually no resistance.
Yeah.
They get rid of it.
Yep. There was an organization in Air, Massachusetts, which was doing that, and they were in lawsuits in China over the technology, and of course suing.
Because it was developed in Massachusetts. Yeah.
Suing over patents in China is not usually a very successful thing to do.
I guess it could be, as they say, an adventure. There's a quick takeaway here. By investing in advanced transmission, the U.S. could form its own super grid from which demand centers like New York and Los Angeles could always draw in renewable energy.
Always.
Always.
100% of the time.
From anywhere in the country where the wind is blowing or the sun is shining.
And if excess power is going on the grid, we've got technologies that will consume that and use it to make things.
Or consume it, make
Yeah.
hydrogen.
Yep.
We've been talking about exactly that
Yep.
on the show.
Okay.
Well, let's move along here.
Our next item is from Clean
A
Technica.
little bit more political here.
Yep, political.
Young Republicans embrace carbon fee proposal. I'll read that again because that's kind of surprising. Young Republicans embrace carbon fee proposal.
It's the young Republicans ganging up with the old Republicans on the middle-aged Republicans is what's happening here. Groups of Republican college students, quote, students for carbon dividends, end quote, that's the title of their thing, are organizing support for a plan put forth by James Baker and George Shultz, who were secretaries of state under George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan, respectively. The Baker-Shultz plan is simple. It would impose a tax of $40 a ton on carbon emissions.
Well, somebody's got to pay for it.
Yeah.
You can't dump your garbage over your neighbor's fence.
Yeah. What that means, by the way, just in case anybody's
Well,
interested.
I got something on
Oh,
that.
go ahead, Tom.
The proposal would add about 36 cents a gallon to the cost of gasoline.
Yes?
Okay? People like Elon Musk have warned repeatedly of the harm that comes from untaxed externalities.
Yes.
Which is what's going on here.
It's what's going on.
Passing off the cost of doing business for others to pay.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about this is these untaxed externalities all come from the same industry. It's not that other
That's
industries
interesting,
don't have them, but
90%
these
of it's
particular
coming
ones,
from these guys.
it's coming from the
And it has
fossil
been
fuels
for a long
industry.
time.
A long time. And you know, the American Lung Association said that the cost of air pollution in Vermont from the transportation sector was $480 per person in this state every year.
Wow.
And that's
You never hear that.
well, we've said it here on the show a
You're
couple of
paying
times.
for it.
You're paying for it. And if you look at transportation, that's 47% of our fossil fuels. So $480 is 47% of something. Well, it's a little bit over $1,000. So we can just say about $1,000 per person per year in medical expenses.
Wow.
And of course, people don't see it because if they have asthma,
scary.
you blame your asthma on your cat. You blame your lung cancer on your cigarettes, but of course the problem exacerbates that. And what's happening? MIT says 200,000 Americans die every year because of air pollution. That would be about 400 in Vermont. Vermont's air is not that clean.
Well, most of it comes from the Midwest.
Exactly. And then 400 people a year in Vermont, that's about 8 people a year in Brattleboro. We know people who are dying
Suffering from
or have died prematurely because of these problems. These people are dying.
There's a
And
takeaway from the article.
yeah, go ahead.
Is $40 a ton enough?
Well, is it? Is it, Tom?
I don't know. They don't answer that question.
Yeah, the information I've seen from other news sources says, well, it should really be more like 110, 120, 130. But we have to start somewhere, you know. Okay.
Oy vey.
Yeah, we're up to Friday, March 9th.
Yeah, we got a
Wonderful,
picture coming up.
wonderful language, Yiddish. Oy vey.
For those who don't understand it, it means oh woe, like oh woe is me.
Yeah, vey comes from a German word meaning pain.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
Woe, pain.
Yeah.
Oh woe. Okay, this is record this Friday, March 9th now.
Yep.
Record U.S. oil output could be a nightmare scenario for OPEC.
The U.S.
Interesting.
will supply much of the world's additional oil over the next 3 years, next few years, according to a report from the International Energy Agency. You know, the International Energy Agency is always wrong.
We'll talk about them a little bit later. We'll visit them again.
Yeah. Over the next 3 years, the United States will cover 80% of the world's demand growth, according to the IEA. Canada, Brazil, and Norway will cover the remainder, leaving no room for more OPEC supply. You know what? Anybody can frack.
Yeah.
I mean, why do they think that the United States is going to? If our energy people think that the United States is going to be the hub for energy for the future because we frack,
It ain't gonna happen.
it ain't going to happen because everybody else is talking about it. And the Russians? Do you think the Russians are going to avoid fracking? Honestly?
And in some parts of the U.S. where they are fracking, there's a lot of local opposition, and some of it is starting to be felt, like eastern Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and like
Granted.
Oklahoma, where they have three earthquakes every
I
day.
don't think the populace is motivated yet. They haven't put two and two together.
Some of them have.
Well, yeah, but it's a different world.
The world is changing. There's no question about that, and it's going to have to. Okay.
The lack of new oil this is the same thing.
Yeah.
The lack of new oil in the works is sowing the seeds of supply problems in the 2020s.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We've talked about this. I think the seeds of supply problems are going to be dampened a little bit by the decreases in demand.
That seems to be happening too, and we'll talk about that.
Yep.
We have talked about that.
Should we move on?
Yeah.
Clean Technica. Go ahead.
SMC Motors hosts a webinar showing dramatic efficiency gains in electric motor technology.
Yeah.
Go look it up. The webinar happened already.
Actually, I listened to the webinar.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Good.
It was kind of fascinating. Software motor company claims its switched reluctance motor. This sounds like such a complete scam, doesn't it? It really does.
Well, I didn't even know what a switched reluctance motor was.
But you can look it up in Wikipedia. Yeah. Will cut energy use by 20 to 50% compared to NEMA premium motors. NEMA is
National Electrical Manufacturers
yeah, this is
Association.
just, it's an acronym. In the 1 to 5 horsepower range, which is 0.75 to 3.7 kilowatts, and will typically pay for themselves within 6 to 36 months. SMC and the U.S. DOE's National Renewable Energy Labs are presenting the webinar. I looked at that and I said, these people, this is a joke. This is a scam. Nobody can do this. And then I look at this thing and I say, National Renewable Energy Labs? Are you kidding me? I mean, this is serious stuff.
Well,
it's real,
one of the things
apparently.
I didn't mention is this applies to DC motors
Yes.
only. AC motors really have only one moving part, the rotor.
Yeah.
DC motors have what they call a commutator, which is kind of a cylinder with a whole bunch of slots in it. And the purpose of that is to make sure the electrical energy gets to the right windings at the right time so
Right.
the motor can keep going.
Yeah.
They've figured out a way to do this without a commutator using software.
There you go.
And that's what's exactly
And,
what's
and
happening.
one of the things that's interesting here is that the rotor doesn't have any electrical power applied to it.
No.
The magnets are in the rotor,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to around the outside of the
Right.
thing, and they could
there's
do.
no brushes.
There's no brushes because they could do this whole thing with software, which is why it's called the Software Motor Corporation.
Amazing.
Isn't it amazing? Some of these things just happen. You know?
Well, I've said it before, there's a lot of smart people working on a lot of
Yeah.
smart things, and some of them will come to fruition.
Yeah.
And this looks like it's going to be one of them.
Well, certainly, when you've got there were a lot of people who signed up for this, and I actually called them because I tried signing up and I couldn't. I got locked out somehow,
Wow.
and I got the guy who is presenting this, who is the head of the company, called me
Oh, good.
because I left a
You
message.
spoke to the horse.
Yeah, I spoke to the horse.
horse's mouth,
That's
yeah.
correct. And we talked about this for a little bit, not very long. So I heard him and said, wow, I wonder what accent that was. And then Tori Wiegers came in while I was doing this I don't remember why she came in, but she comes into my apartment every once. She's a landlady.
Yeah.
And she listened to that, and I said, I think he's got a South African accent. She said, nah, that's New Zealand. It was. She's got a really good ear for things sometimes. Anyway, should we move on?
Yeah, we're going to
Power
engineering.
Yeah, that. By the way, that the idea of having a payoff of 6 months, that's stunning. And they're saying that if you've got a big HVAC system that, unlike a refrigerator where the motor and the compressor are usually kind of locked together, in a big system they're separate, so you can remove the motor and put in a new motor. And in a system like this, you could retrofit these things and get these kinds of savings.
These are like in small pumps, they're like in fans.
They're all over the place. Yeah. And the idea also of I'm accustomed.
About this big to about this big.
Yeah, I'm accustomed to a 10 horsepower DC motor being like this.
They're going to be a lot smaller now.
They're a lot smaller. Okay, wind power engineering.
Bloomberg New Energy Finance Report has suggestions for the RE100 cities. What are they?
Well, that's Renewable Energy 100, cities that are committed to 100% renewable energy. The companies, not just cities, companies. The companies currently committed to the RE100 campaign will need to procure an estimated 172 terawatt hours.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a big lot.
172,000 gigawatt hours of more clean energy generation by 2030 to meet their renewable energy targets, according to a new report by Bloomberg New Energy Finance. And the quote here is, RE100 signatories to spur $94 billion of investment opportunity.
Well, this is Bloomberg. They're advising investors.
They're advising investors, and they're saying, the amount of renewable energy dealing with climate change is the single biggest investment opportunity that has ever happened.
Is that so?
Well, just think about it, Tom. We're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars worldwide in a single opportunity, and it's something that is important everywhere. And the United States, we talked about China getting out ahead of the United States. Why do you suppose they did that? And you know the thing that's interesting.
I don't think they did it with blinders on.
No, this whole thing about climate change being a Chinese hoax. Well, they hoaxed the United States into believing it was a hoax, so that they could. I mean, this is not a hoax that's going to last forever. If it's a hoax, it isn't a hoax. It's been going on for
By the way, I got
a long time.
A partial list of the RE100 signatories.
Yes,
it's a who's who.
Yeah, it is.
Really.
It really
Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, Walmart, U.S. Department of Defense, AT&T, Dow, GM, T-Mobile. These are the big guys.
Yeah,
General
Motors.
Generous Motors. Yeah.
Generous Motors. And if you look at this, these are company after company after company, big companies that are saying we're going to go to 100% renewable. And who is saying don't do that?
Trump.
Organizations that have their money in fossil fuels. And why do you suppose they're doing that? Because they're losing market share. But they're going to lose market share. They're just, they're going into a depression. They don't want to be in the depression. So they're trying to tell everybody, buy our products anyway. And the thing that's sad about this is that some of them, and this includes like BP and Statoil and so forth, have got people in them who are saying, wait a minute, this is a big business opportunity. We can make more money selling renewable energy or making products that make renewable energy than we'd ever make making oil in the future. But we've got a concentration of companies in the United States that are trying to prevent that thinking from happening. And my theory, this is a conspiracy theory, I admit it, is that it's happening because these old fogies, people who, if they would just think clearly, would grow beards like this, don't want to change their business plans.
Well, it has worked well for 100 years. Why should we change now?
Right.
Let's move along here
Okay.
to AIE. What? Oh, it's Alt Energy.
Alt Energy Mag.
Magazine,
Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, Sasha Derry, who was from Alt Energy Mag, was out here on a show once,
Okay.
some time ago.
Young guy?
Okay, Alt Energy Mag. Yeah, he's kind of young.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah.
All Earth Renewables to shift renewable development resources out of state.
Out of
so
state.
This is a local.
This is,
a local
Vermont is
story.
losing a major business. Why is it losing a major business? Because the major business is trying to sell two things that Vermont doesn't like.
Yeah, wind power.
Wind turbines and utility scale solar.
Yeah, they don't like that either.
They don't, you know, and we've got people who are saying wind turbines. We can't have wind turbines. They keep people awake at night. They give people nausea. And right across the
About
border,
that in detail.
yeah, right across the border, we've got a state which is the most advanced state in the United States in terms of its pursuit of renewable power.
Which one is that?
I don't remember if it's New York or Massachusetts, but it's one or the other.
They're both big.
They're both big.
pushing.
In terms of their programs, they're out ahead of California. In terms of actual production, California's ahead. David Blittersdorf, President and CEO of All Earth Renewables, Inc., announced that the proposed Kidder Hill community wind installation in Lowell, Vermont, has been suspended, citing a turbulent climate for renewable wind energy in Vermont and the urgent need for renewables to be built. He said resources will go elsewhere.
By the way, this plant they're putting up, they wanted to put up in Lowell, is huge.
Yeah,
2 turbines,
2 turbines.
5 megawatts.
Yep.
This is way too big for Vermont.
Amazing. So what's happening is, because of the opposition that we have in Vermont, which is actually, you can trace this stuff to in some ways right to the governor of the state.
Yeah.
We're losing business opportunities to New York and Massachusetts.
Well, we got a takeaway here from the article itself.
Yeah.
Reducing carbon emissions is the most critical issue of our time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the face of mounting threats from climate change and diminishing finite fossil fuel resources, we cannot afford to be slowed down by a regulatory process that is unfriendly to renewable energy.
I read
Duh.
a report which didn't make it in here. As I recall, it didn't make it in, but I read one this week that said that our speed of adoption of renewable energy is approximately 1/7 of what it needs to be to address climate change.
Who is R?
Worldwide.
Okay.
And, you know,
Has Bittersdorf been on our show?
no,
We ought to get him.
it would be nice to do it, but
Yeah.
I don't think he lives rather far from here, and if he's abandoning
He still lives
Vermont,
in Vermont.
yeah. Anyway,
There's no place in Vermont that's far from here. Try going out to Texas.
I walk everywhere or use my bike. Anything that's beyond Dummerston is far from here.
Okay, let's
Okay.
move along here.
Saturday, March 10th.
Changing course. This is an interesting article.
Yep.
Coal country students working for a power switch.
Yeah.
And the back story here is Kentucky used to produce a lot of coal.
And it doesn't
Doesn't
anymore.
anymore. And it's not because of renewables.
Yeah, and Mitch McConnell hasn't quite got that in his mind yet. This is from an organization called Ohio Valley Resource.
Picture coming up here
Yeah, we do.
of a Kentucky coal mine.
Yeah. Well, it's a coal processing plant.
Well, it's right on top of a mine. It wouldn't be
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And
And
right in
it's-
the front there is kudzu, which is popping up everywhere in the South. We
One
got to
of-
figure out a way to eat it.
You can eat it.
I know you can, but it doesn't taste good.
Well, cows can eat it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've been reading a book called Cows Save the Planet. Maybe they'll take care of the kudzu.
Good.
Yeah, there you go. Arleigh Boggs Elementary sits between Kentucky's 2 tallest mountains in a remote area that once had a booming coal economy. 10 years ago, there were over 1,000 coal miners employed here in Letcher County. Today, there are 28.
This is a good in-depth article if you want to find out what's happening at the lowest level.
Yeah.
The people who work in the mines.
And the children of the people who work in the mines, and they have to face a future. They're going to be growing into a future.
Well,
And
these were high-paying jobs.
yeah, they were.
And they're gone.
They're gone.
And
So
there's
that,
nothing replacing it. But there are jobs, but nothing really serious.
yeah. Okay.
We were left with, this from the kids, this is the kids talking. We were left with many unemployed miners. Paying bills has become a hardship. The county is now missing over $1 million in the annual taxes we once received from the coal industry. The 3 solar panels are now sitting on the school's roof and are used mainly to charge the classroom laptops, reducing the school's energy costs by about $600 each year. And the kids are out there promoting this kind of stuff throughout the county because it's about the only thing that's going to save it.
Well, yeah. Okay. Our next item is from Solar Industry.
New nation's largest solar plus storage project comes online.
Florida Power and Light has integrated a 40 megawatt hour storage battery system into its 74.5 megawatt Babcock Ranch Solar Energy Center in Charlotte County, Florida. FPL notes that this is the largest solar plus battery system in the United States. The batteries will extend power delivery into evening hours and add battery power as needed to meet peak demand. And you know, one of the things that's interesting about that is here's a story that's a couple of days old, and it's, you know, I'm reading Tesla is going to be building the world's biggest battery in Colorado.
Okay. Charlotte County, Florida, I think is right by Miami.
Okay.
I think it covers that. And here's, again, a takeaway.
I hope that battery doesn't wind up being underwater.
Improving technologies for energy storage are moving us ever closer to the full goal, to our goal of full reliance on clean, renewable energy.
Yeah.
Well, it's inevitable, ultimately.
Yeah.
The batteries are charged, and this is everybody knows this, the batteries are charged during the day when the sun is shining, and the stored solar power can then be dispatched to the grid by supplemental dips in the plant's operation.
Yep.
So the stored power can also be dispatched during periods of peak customer electricity demand. So
Yeah.
stored power is a natural for solar.
Yeah,
And for wind,
absolutely.
for that matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
Coming a little closer to home.
Our next item is from Platts.
Whatever Platts is.
Platts is a news organization that is devoted to commodities.
Okay. Well, let's see what they have to say about it.
Yeah.
New York awards $1.4 billion to 26 renewable energy projects. That's what they got to say.
Yeah, I guess so. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that 22 utility-scale solar farms, 3 wind farms, and 1 hydro project were selected for contract awards at an average price of 2.117 cents per kilowatt hour. That let me.
It's getting down there.
This is like, you know, I'm paying close
It
to
was
20.
6 cents the first time we looked at it.
Yeah.
Wholesale.
Yeah.
You're paying what, about 15 cents?
I'm
per
paying
kilo?
close to 20 because I'm getting renewable power over the grid.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Cow power.
cow power. This will help the state meet its clean energy goals. Well, by golly, it'll probably also help the people in the state meet their budget goals. The renewable energy programs will collectively add over 1,380 megawatts of capacity.
And we got a picture up there that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Are we looking at a vortex coming off of that turbine, or is that just a cloud formation?
and that's a cloud formation, I'm pretty sure. It looks like a vortex
Doesn't
coming
it?
off the
Yeah,
wind turbine,
yeah.
doesn't it?
I'm-
That's a
I'm
really
looking at
interesting
that and I'm saying, what is that?
What is that? Yeah. The tallest turbine, in case people don't understand what we're talking about, apparently has a weird kind of cloud formation coming from it.
Well, there's other cloud formations sort of like that in the background.
There are.
So it
That's the
suggests
reason
that
why.
is cloud.
Yeah, that's the reason
But
why I'm
it's
saying.
interesting
Yeah.
because it certainly looks like it's coming from that turbine.
Yep,
And I can't understand any reason why it should be.
yep. We are up to Sunday, March 11th,
Well,
and we
got
have
a
a.
little bit something still on that one. Though.
Oh, do we? Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a lot from this. I won't read all of it. Projects were awarded in response to the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority's 2017 Standard Request for Proposals. We do this every year.
Yeah.
So this is this year's. New York's total installed solar capacity, including residential, utility, and non-residential solar installations is almost 2,000 megawatts. Okay?
That's significant.
NYSERDA, which is the short name for what I just called.
Yeah.
Will issue the next solicitation for large-scale renewable energies in this April. So we've got to look at that one.
Yeah, we
We've
do.
got to look at that one.
Okay, we're up to Sunday, March 11th, and we have
Another picture here.
a picture here.
Whoa.
Whoa! Yes, that is a lighthouse, and the wave is just the breakers. You know, the breaking water is just a little
Whoa.
bit taller than it is.
As
Although
the
that's not a very
climate
tall
changes
lighthouse.
and the earth warms, where's the safest place on earth to live?
From the most populous cities to the loneliest isolated islets, everyone, everywhere will be affected in some way by climate change. Not everyone's circumstances are equal, though, and climate change resilience varies widely from place to place. This is from IFL Science. And you know,
What it says here, so are there places that will be threatened and affected by climate change the least? Is anywhere on earth within reason relatively protected from the ravages of climate changes? If you're thinking it might be the United States, though, you might be in for an unpleasant surprise.
yeah,
You can't escape climate change if your feet are on the ground.
yeah.
Everyone is affected.
When I was a kid, I stayed summers, a few summers, in my grandmother's house in Winchester, New Hampshire, which is at the top of a mountain.
We talked about
And I remember walking out the door and seeing from four telephone poles, and from the first to the second, there was a line that was completely covered by swallows. And from the second to the third, the line was completely covered by swallows. And from the third to the fourth, the line was completely covered by swallows. A lot of
You don't
birds.
see them anymore.
When my kids were little, they lived in the same house. And I remember my daughter running in the door and saying, "You got to see all the birds." And I went out. From the first to the second, no swallows.
Wow.
From the second to the third, half the line was covered with swallows. A lot of birds to her. From the third third to the fourth, no swallows. And I thought to myself, you know what? There's no mosquitoes left. Well, there were, but when I was a little kid, you'd have 4 of them buzzing around your head no
Oh, yeah.
matter where you went. But when she was a kid, you know, you go out and after a while a mosquito would hobble on over and try to make life difficult for you. But the thing was, when I left that house 15 years ago, there were no swallows at all.
Wow.
Now, when my daughter said that thing about all those birds, the mosquitoes were largely gone, but for the first time we had ticks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's ticks all over the place, and they've brought Lyme disease.
And the mosquitoes were an annoyance, but they didn't bring Lyme disease.
Yeah, and you know, you can go down the list, item after item after item. You can go down the list and say, what has happened to this organism? And birds, we don't. The World Wildlife Fund says that we lost 60% of our wildlife worldwide over a period of 40 years, ending in 2015.
Well, right here in Brattleboro, and I don't know if my observations are scientific, but I've noticed a decrease in the amount of pigeons.
Wow, that's scary.
I used to look at my building before I even lived there,
Yeah.
and the whole roof was covered with pigeons.
Oh man, that
I
is.
used to joke that's the sergeant pigeons lining up as troops for inspection. And they're still up there, but instead of
The flocks are smaller.
rows and rows of pigeons up there, there's maybe 20, maybe 30.
That is scary, Tom.
Yeah.
That really is. I mean, a lot of people don't like pigeons. I happen to like pigeons. And for those of you who like to know, they're really good to eat. But
You got to sneak up on them and put salt on their
no, I don't do that. What I do is, you know, I've had squab hen, and squab hen is pigeon.
I bet it is. I'm sure I've had squab. I
Yeah.
know I've had squab.
Yeah. Okay, but you know that we've, and also almost the entire state of Vermont is in a different hardiness zone than it was 40 years ago.
Moving north. Vermont,
It's
Forests are
crazy.
moving north, but Vermont is
Do
staying
you know
south.
what I'm thinking of buying now? I'm thinking of buying a fig tree to plant
Yeah.
in the yard.
Yeah.
Because you can get figs that will grow, they're said to grow in zone 5. that yard on, here in Elliott Street where the house that I live,
Yeah.
I think that's in zone 6.
It could be. Well, we're seeing peaches start to grow in Vermont.
I've got a peach tree growing in my front yard, which was a volunteer.
Wow.
I bought a peach last year and put it in. Also bought cherries. Okay, we should keep going. We have an item here from Economic Times.
$1 billion needed globally to achieve 1 terawatt. Terawatt. I can't even say it.
Okay, you've already made a mistake, Tom. It's not $1 billion. It's $1 trillion.
That's what I said, trillion.
No, you said $1 billion. I think
right.
people can back up the thing and see if I'm right, but
No, that's
I'm wrong
trillion.
half
I
the
don't know
time.
what I
So,
said. But yes, it's $1 trillion.
yeah.
But 1 terawatt solar capacity by 2030, says President Macron, who is the French president.
French President Macron said, I don't know how to pronounce French, so I probably got it.
Yeah.
Today said $1 trillion will be needed to achieve a terawatt of solar power by 2030. This is just around the corner, really. $1 trillion?
Years.
We're talking about almost $100 billion a year. Speaking alongside Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the first conference of the International Solar Alliance, he mentioned the financing and regulation hurdles for achieving the target that need to be cleared. And these people all over the world are looking at the power vacuum that has been created by the Trump administration withdrawal from the Paris Climate.
What's happening here.
And it's
This article says that 3/4 of the world's population lives in countries represented by the ISA.
which was just formed by India because India says we want some of that.
Yeah.
And so what is the United States saying? It's a Chinese plot. It's climate change is not happening. Don't have to worry about solar. Just don't worry about it. We're going to put a tariff on solar, so you guys are going to have to sell your cheap solar someplace other than the United States.
That's just what the next article is going to be.
Yeah, the next article is from Clean Technica. So what's the title?
Trump wants to cut clean energy research funding in half.
Climate change.
This is a good in-depth article with a lot of graphs if you like graphs.
We've got, bedlam is, Donald Trump said he was going to drain the swamp, and what he's got is he has revealed bedlam. You know what bedlam was, where that came from?
House, wasn't it?
It was a Bethlehem hospital, and it was
It's like Bellevue in New York.
Yeah, sort of. Climate change is expected to drive demand for clean energy in decades ahead, giving an edge to countries that invest in low-carbon technologies. President Trump is pushing to cut spending on clean energy research, undermining any hope of U.S. competitiveness as the chief economic rivals to double public funding for the game.
Well, I got a paragraph
For the same.
here from the article that talks about it and explains it pretty well.
Yep.
In recent years, technological advances have helped drive down the cost of wind, solar, and other advanced energy technologies.
Yep.
The Department of Energy is conducting transformative research, developing unproven technologies to the point where they can compete with existing technologies. The cost of power has plummeted since 2010, while the number of solar jobs has more than doubled. Okay? Where the previous administration aimed to double funding for clean energy research, this administration is pushing to cut it in half.
And why? In order to maintain a market for an obsolete technology. That's not going to play on the world stage.
While the president's budget is significant, it is important that while the president's budget is insignificant as a statement of the administration's priorities, it is unlikely to pass.
Yes.
That's the good news.
Okay, we're up to Monday, March 12th, and we're falling behind in our
A
timing.
little waterlogged.
Pretty badly, yeah. DesMoinesRegister.com. I almost didn't even put this article in because it was the only one that said what it said, and I had to look at other articles, and there were articles from a week earlier that said basically the same thing, but they, this didn't really make the news the way that it should have.
Climate emergency. Half of the Bering Sea ice vanishes in 2 weeks. Whoops.
Whoops. In a shocking melting event, half the ice in the Bering Sea disappeared during a 2-week period in February. This is Arctic ice melting in the winter. This is
Yeah.
crazy.
It isn't even daylight.
Yeah, according to Rick Toman, a climate scientist with the National Weather Service in Alaska, Brian Brettschneider, I'm sorry, I'm slipping into German here, a climatologist based in Alaska, posted a quote, overall sea ice extent on February 20th was the lowest on record. We're seeing stuff going on in the Arctic this winter that is just insane. And you know the Point Morris Jessup thing where the temperatures were 50 degrees above normal for 10 days, that's thousands of miles from this.
Yes, it is. So you're talking about northern Greenland.
Northern Greenland versus the Bering Sea. I mean, it's like the New York
Sea is between Alaska and Russia.
Yeah, it's like the distance between New York City and Los Angeles. It's crazy. This is crazy.
Well, what the article says is that what does it say?
I don't know.
Warming trends are much greater in the Arctic regions.
Yeah.
Normally they are. But
yeah.
Temperatures should be 20 to 30 degrees below zero, but are instead measuring above the freezing point.
This is insanity.
The coastline is now open to more storms rolling in from the sea.
The idea that you can ignore this is flat out madness. You know?
It is that. It is exactly
okay.
that. It's politics.
It's politics, which is flat out madness.
Yeah.
And the children in this country are the ones who are going to inherit this mess.
Well, we're going to revisit the ISA.
Okay.
23 heads of state hail International Solar Alliance.
This is from Economic Times. Heads of states of 23 nations hailed the efforts of the International Solar Alliance at its founding summit for providing a common platform to work on clean energy. They underlined the importance of clean energy, particularly for developing countries who want to save huge fuel costs and give the planet a cleaner future. I got news for you, Donald Trump. You're missing the biggest business opportunity of all time because you want to support obsolete technology. It's like saying we don't want anything. No, we don't want to be involved in this automobile thing. We're going to continue manufacturing buggy whips.
Well, that's an interesting takeaway here. This ISA is consisting of countries, they call them states, between the two tropics. The
yes.
Tropic of Capricorn and Tropic of Cancer.
Yeah.
Which he calls the sunny countries.
Yes.
And it's headquartered in North India near New Delhi, and it's an initiative of this guy, Prime Minister Modi, who you just mentioned.
Right, with the help of Macron, the president of France.
Well, Macron was there. Well, a lot of people were there, but Macron happened to have piped up and raised it. But they're all in favor of this. They say, you know, this is a good opportunity.
We are up to Tuesday, March 13th, and we're behind schedule here, Tom.
12 minutes left.
Yeah, for a bunch of stuff. Okay.
California put solar procurement on hold despite production records. And I'm bringing a
okay. This is from Inhabitat. The 3 largest California electric utilities are well on their way to meeting the state's mandate of sourcing 33% of their energy from renewable resources by 2020. But they did not procure any renewable energy capacity last year, and the California Public Utilities Commission has proposed that they procure nearly none in 2018.
I don't quite understand this one, but what they seem to be saying is there's too much going on, we don't know what to do, so we're not going to do anything for a while.
I think that's basically what it is. They're being, I could accuse them of being lazy, except I really don't know enough about it.
I think they're sitting there saying, you know, what do we do?
Yeah. Okay, National Resources Defense Council is responsible for this next one.
Clean energy is key to New England's fuel security.
Important. Important. ISO New England, which operates the New England power grid, filed comments with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, raising concerns that reliance on natural gas could undermine grid security due to potential wintertime shortfalls in gas supply.
Well, this article, the article is questioning the ISO and their logic.
Yeah.
So they're saying, why are they doing it? Continued deployment of clean energy will improve grid reliability and reduce fuel security risks.
Yeah.
Instead, the ISO has floated a dirty energy path, paying millions of dollars to uneconomic oil or nuclear generators not to retire.
So what they want to do is keep the gas flowing. This is the ISO wants to keep the gas flowing.
Well, the question is there enough gas to do that?
Well, yeah, that's a question. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, we're moving on.
Our next item is from Australia, and it's about the Liddell power station.
Picture this one up.
Yep, this is from Renew Economy.
Too bad it's closing, isn't it?
Yeah,
okay.
well, people
Still
are...
too much base load in New South Wales after the
What?
Liddell closure. That's
What?
the Liddell.
Yeah.
Right there.
AGL, the biggest coal generator in Australia, says there will be too much baseload power in New South Wales even after the aging Liddell coal plant is closed in 2022. AGL vowed to replace Liddell with a mixture of wind, solar, battery technology, demand management, a new generator, and upgrade of another coal-powered plant. We hear all the time, solar and wind, the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow, they're intermittent, we need baseload power. And here is a company that owns coal generating
This is a big
facilities
coal company.
saying we don't need that much baseload power.
Now, isn't that interesting?
Isn't it? And of course, one thing that people don't tell you who complain about things like that is when you have a nuclear generator or something along those lines, which involves a big boiler, you can't crank it up and crank it down. It has to run kind of
it takes time.
flat out.
They got a word for that. Ramp up time.
Ramp up time, which in some cases can take days.
Right?
And these, what happens is you've got something that is always generating power at the same rate, and then you've got a demand that goes like this.
Yeah, so you got to match that.
You've
One
got to
way or
match the
another.
demand one way or the other.
That's reality.
That's reality. So these people are saying the flat line is too high. We need to have more renewable energy.
We've talked about this before. There seems to be something going on in Australia where at the uppermost level, they're pushing fossil fuels. And at the local level, they're fighting it.
Yeah.
And there's a better way to go.
There's a big election coming up in South Australia this week.
Uh-huh.
We'll see how local people think about that. It's kind of touch and go.
Well, we'll see.
Okay, we're up
Talking
to...
about it here, guys.
Yeah, we are up to Wednesday, March 14th, with an item from CNN with a tiger.
We got a tiger here. Let me find the tiger.
There you go. A
Global
tigress.
warming puts nearly half of the species in key places at risk.
It makes me feel, it really makes me feel depressed sometimes. About half of all plant and animals in 35 of the world's most biodiverse places are at risk of extinction due to climate change, a report claims. The report was published by the University of East Anglia, good school, James Cook University, I think that must be in New Zealand, I'm not sure, and the World Wildlife Fund. It's down there somewhere. In the World Wildlife Fund, it projected loss of nearly 80,000 plants and animals in 35 diverse and wildlife-rich areas. Actually, the World Wildlife Fund is not saying 80,000. They're saying something more like millions and millions and millions. But these are just the ones that they talked about in these 35 areas.
Well, they chose 35 places based upon their, quote, uniqueness and the variety of plants and animals found there.
Yes.
So these are special places.
Yeah, they are.
Chosen.
Yep.
If temperatures were to rise by 4.5 degrees Celsius, animals like the African elephants would likely lack sufficient water supplies.
African elephant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 96% of all breeding ground for tigers in India's Sundarbans region could be submerged in water.
So where are the tigers going to go?
Where are the tigers going to go? However, if the temperature rise is kept to below 2 degrees Celsius, the number of species lost could be limited to 25%.
Could be limited to 25%. So we could lose a quarter of them instead of half of them if we keep it at 2%.
Yeah.
But, anyway, I don't know what to say about that. Okay, our next...
We got a couple items here to go. We got enough time to cover.
Yep, our next item is from the Sydney Morning Herald.
Australian first trial shows wind can provide energy security. This goes on to something we just talked about.
Yeah, an Australian first trial is taking wind farms from passive producers that sell their output in a slab to more, and what they're saying is they just sell it when they've got it and they don't worry about it after that,
Right.
to more active participants in an energy market. Neoen, Australia's South Australian Hornsdale 2 wind farm, carried out a trial that could see wind replace coal, gas, and even pumped hydro, in providing energy stability.
Well, the trial was a success.
Yeah,
And it means that wind farms can now actively sell their energy into the market where it is needed,
yeah,
instead of selling it as a slab,
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Turbines can move from passive generators to active participants in the national electricity market.
There you
That
go.
makes sense.
It does. The only thing is that they've got, like the United States, they have a federal government that's and that feels
That has a different idea.
has antipathy to anything that's renewable.
Well, we got the last one coming up here. We got a picture of Arnold.
A picture of Arnold.
Where's Arnold?
He'll be back.
There he
There
is.
he is. This is from Clean Technica.
Schwarzenegger, this is a very interesting article.
It is indeed.
Schwarzenegger to sue oil companies, compares them to murderers.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is steaming mad at oil companies. He plans to do something about their reprehensible, irresponsible behavior that has put billions of people at risk around the world. During an interview with Politico, he said he is personally going to take them to court, quote, for knowingly killing people all over the world, end quote.
He's not mincing words. This is his exact words. This is no different from the smoking industry issue. The industry knew for decades that smoking would kill people, would harm people, and create cancer, and were hiding that fact from the people and denied it. Eventually they were taken to court and had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars because of that. The oil companies knew from 1959 on. They did their own study that there would be global warming happening because of fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it would be risky for people's lives. That could kill. I don't think there's any difference. If you walk into a room and you know you're going to kill someone, it's first-degree murder. I think it's the same thing with the oil companies.
Well, the thing that's, there's a vital part of this whole thing it's really important, and that is when you and I were kids, Tom, I can remember in school hearing about pollution killing people and saying to the teacher, if it's killing people, why don't we just stop?
Well, okay.
Well, I mean, you remember the time. You remember the time. You and I were in different schools.
You're in a private school, weren't you?
Well, at that point, I was in a public school.
Yeah.
But the teacher said, look, if we stop burning coal, if we stop burning oil, if we stop, doing these things, people won't have work. They won't be able to buy food. Farmers will not be able to plow their fields. We won't have the food that we need. We won't have our clothes. We won't have our warm apartments and homes. We need this stuff, and people die as a consequence. Well, people die from lots of things. It's too bad. It's just, if we don't do this, more people will die. That's the point. All right.
Again, talking about quoting Schwarzenegger, every car should have a warning label on it. Every product that has fossil fuels should have a warning label on it.
Yeah, but you
He's
see,
not mincing words.
the thing is, Tom, today, if you ask scientists who really know, one after another, you're going to find that more and more, a bigger and bigger majority is starting to say, we don't need these fossil fuels at all anymore.
Well, the bottom
We've
line
got
is,
all the technology that we need to go elsewhere. And
bottom line is economics is moving in that direction.
yeah,
That's
and I want.
what's going to do the job.
This is
It's
not.
going to take a while.
This is not, by the way, local oil distributors who are involved in
No,
a
these are big
conspiracy.
guys. These are the
These
real
are
guys.
people who are, and Warren Buffett said that Donald Trump's tax cuts saved him $27 billion. Well, if you,
Yeah, he did say that, didn't he?
how much did they save Donald Trump? How much did they save the Koch brothers?
How much did they save my secretary?
Yeah, well, how much did they save me? How much did they
I'm
save
talking
you?
I'm talking about his second.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you have a delightful week. We'll see you next time, or I guess you'll see us next time.
I hope so.
I hope so.